Hey, beautiful souls and creative minds. Welcome to the Artist Stoop, the podcast where we turn the art world into your personal playground. I'm Jillian Zapata, your host, and I can't wait to dive into the art world with you. Each episode will be kicking it with an incredible artist, unraveling their stories and turning the spotlight on the magic that happens beyond the brush. Get ready to discover new perspectives, forge connections, and immerse yourself one captivating conversation at a time. So grab your favorite beverage, maybe a sketchbook, and let's jump into the kaleidoscope of creativity together. This is the Artist Stoop, where art isn't just a thing you see, it's an experience you feel. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Artist Stoop. Today, we are joined by Kayla Ackelson, a versatile artist, writer, and interior stylist and mental health advocate. Kayla uses art as a meditative outlet, grounding herself through intentional creativity. She believes art and good design should be accessible to everyone, and she loves exploring different mediums, drawing inspiration from nature, memories, and the human experience. Kayla is passionate about helping others create spaces that bring joy and inspire well-being. And we can't wait to hear more about her journey and her insights. So welcome, Kayla, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I am super excited for having you on. Actually, when I went on to, well, obviously I follow you on Instagram, and I think I have for a while, because it's just, there's something about, there's this simplicity to your art, but then when you zoom in and you see the different mediums and things that you use for it when you zoom in, it's just like, oh, I have to know more. And they're so beautifully elegant in that sense. And then I was like, I need to know more about her. And I went to your website and I was like, oh, she does design. So you do all of these beautiful things that I'm like, she's like my soul sister. If I could, do everything that you're doing, it'd be like, boom. That's how I feel about it.
Sounds like a lot when you say it.
It is a lot. And I think it's interesting because there's a lot of artists who were not just, one thing. I can't tell you how many artists I've interviewed where we've done interior design as well, or they do something in the fashion world, or they just do another form of creative outlet, because it truly does all go together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you are, where are you? I know you're on the East Coast, but you're North Carolina, South Carolina?
Pennsylvania. I wish I was in North Carolina.
Why did I think you were in North Carolina? I think
I'm in North Carolina every year. So maybe you caught me when I was there.
I don't know. Maybe I was emailing another artist and it was like North Carolina or South Carolina. I have no idea why. Pennsylvania.
It's not that bad. I make it sound bad. It's not that bad.
No, I had another artist I just interviewed from Pennsylvania, and she actually jumps back and forth between Pennsylvania, and then she spends a month in New York, and then back to Pennsylvania. She goes back and forth, which is like,
yeah, we're close to everything.
Yeah. So tell us about, tell us just a little bit about you and your background and how you got into art.
Yeah, sure. I think like a lot of creatives, I was a creative kid. I was always, making something, drawing something. My dad would let me play with, the saw and the power tools and stuff. So I was constantly building, spending time outside. And then when it came time for college, I panicked a little bit. And my parents were actually the ones who said, Kayla, you love art. Why wouldn't you go into art? So I'm lucky enough to have supportive parents who really, pushed me because they could see that that's what I wanted and needed, honestly. So I went to undergrad for fine arts. I graduated with a bachelor's fine arts in non-traditional photography. So I was doing a lot of darkroom manipulation.
Cool.
Kind of playing around with that. And then, like a lot of darkroom photographers, I graduated and didn't have a darkroom. So I had to get creative, and I actually use a lot of those photos in collages now. So it kind of comes full circle.
Oh, cool.
And I actually have fallen in love with collage and painting. So it's all kind of led me to this point, and that's what I'm working on currently. Who knows where I'll go?
That is awesome. Yeah, well, bravo to your parents for being super supportive and recognizing that. I think
Mhm.
it's really interesting, you know, how I don't know how old you are, but it's just like, being uh, the pre social media kids era, and it's just like, and then
Mhm.
knowing like potentially that, okay, if I go into this, it might not come out with anything, or like, how are you going to
Yeah.
find a job? Like, I think that is
Mhm.
typically most parents' fear about, like,
Yeah.
just like, because there's that phrase of just being a starving artist, which, you
Mhm.
could be a starving, English teacher at this point, it's just like,
Sure.
there's
You're
so many
absolutely right.
things. And so it's just like, for them to recognize, like, oh, you need this. This is a part of
Mhm.
you. That's really, really
Mhm.
special.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate because a lot of the kids I was in art school with did not have that support. Their
Uh-huh.
parents weren't coming to gallery openings and things. So I do feel fortunate. And I had a professor who told me and some other students that being an artist is one of the bravest things you can do. You're putting yourself out there for rejection over and over again. And like you said, there's no guarantee. You really have to hustle and want it.
Yeah, I think it's a true testament to us as artists, because it's just like people, I think there's this stigma that, or used to be a stigma that, like, artists can sometimes be lazy. Oh, they just want to sit around and create and just paint, or
Mhm.
do, they don't want to contribute to things. It's just like, have you seen an artist? Like, you have to have
Mhm.
so much grit and perseverance. And it's just like, especially if we truly believe in ourselves, it's just like, you have to hustle. Like, no one
Mhm.
else is going to put us out there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're our first marketing team, we're our social media team. Until you can get to a point where you hire those people, you have to do it
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, your bio mentions that creating art is a meditative process for you. Can you share more
Mhm.
about how, that practice helps you stay grounded, and particularly in relations to your mental health? Because you said that mental health was a huge part of your work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a big part of what I do and why I do what I do. So after school, I held a couple of jobs in the art world and then eventually was in kind of the corporate art world, which was wonderful. I learned so many things and it really served its purpose. But it came to the point where I never saw any of the artwork that I was supposed to be working around. And there was a real disconnect for me. It was like, why am I doing this job when I'm supposed to be at one of the largest collections in the country and I never see any of the art? And it, it wasn't gelling. It didn't feel aligned anymore.
Hmm.
And then COVID happened. And I know it was terrible for a lot of people, but it was actually a big blessing in disguise for me.
Yeah.
So I took that as an opportunity to sort of step back from the corporate world. And I was like, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it.
Mm.
And the first few years were a little rocky because of COVID and because I had to find my footing, financial things like that. But I'm going for it. And you know, there was a time where I wasn't creating when I was working in that corporate world just because I was so burnt out for many reasons. And I noticed, and my therapist noticed, a direct correlation between my mental health and how much I was creating. So,
Mm.
I was reminded to get back into my studio, even if I was creating just for myself. So, you
Uh-huh.
know, I'd say after COVID more so, once I was able to like get back into the studio and start creating things, I just saw such an uptick in my happiness levels. And I realized that's what it was. I wasn't creating. I wasn't feeling passionate about what I was doing. And so I started putting that out on social media, and a lot of people feel the same way, whether they're an artist or not. I think you can't work a 9 to 5 every single day, go home, eat dinner, watch Netflix, and go to bed. I don't think that's a way to live.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying that I don't have days like that, absolutely, but you have to have things you're passionate about, right?
You do. And first of all, what were you doing in the art corporate world?
I started in visitor services, and then I moved my way up into the development department, which is, fundraising. Um, And I was one of the only people in the fundraising department that wasn't actually asking for funds. I was helping with events and programs for beneficiaries and donors and things like that.
Okay, yeah, because this is like that's a huge role, and I think it's really interesting because like I've always had a 9 to 5 job as well, and it's so. And what I learned early on is same thing. Like if I'm just working and then all of a sudden I go months without creating, or even a week, it's just
Yeah.
like, I was telling you before we jumped on that my world is a little disheveled right now because we had to replace floors and whatnot. And it's just like, I haven't come into my studio because I haven't been able to for a week. And I, like yesterday, I had one of the shittiest days, like full on, like I felt lonely. I was depressed. I was just like, what is wrong? And it's like, oh, I haven't been in my studio in a whole week.
Yeah, you feel it.
And it's so true. And, you know, and for you to have the wherewithal for that. And I think one of the most important things that my therapist had told me over there, she's like, you may have to make sure that you have to do things to fill your cup back up. Before you fill other people's cups up, you have to make sure to fill your own cup up with something that's going to bring you joy. And so for me, that's creating. And it sounds like it's similar for you.
Yeah, I imagine it's, I'm not an athlete by any means, but I imagine it's someone who goes to the gym every day and then takes time off and they crave it. They need it, right? Their body wants it. And it's like when I'm not using those parts of my brain, I really struggle to do much else, honestly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So you said something interesting. Your work now has a variety of mediums. You have the collage, the photographs, and paint. So where did you get like the point to like blend those experiments with those different materials, and how did you get to the point of doing the style of art that you're doing now?
So if you look back in time, I guess right after my undergrad college, I was doing sort of these large abstract sort of swirls, very biometric forms, and they were inspired by the female form. So it was an abstraction of the female breast, and I liked that it wasn't obvious. And
I
then
love
it's
that.
it's almost like I zoomed out, way out. And so I just have this thing for circles and orbs and always have. I can't seem to break away from it. So I'm just going to embrace it. And I had a lot of canvas sitting around that I wasn't loving. So I started painting over them and using the underpainting as inspiration. So
Oh,
the
cool.
colors of the previous painting really impact what the next version will be. As far as colors, that's where that comes from. And just, I love found imagery. I'm a big fan of newspapers and magazines and things. I collect everything. I'm that person who like hoards materials because it'll show up in a collage. It's so important to me. But yeah, typically I will start with a canvas that already has something over it. And I will do sort of a stream of consciousness style journal over the canvas and then paint over that. So I kind of like that's like a secret method underneath.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that kind of goes back to the mental health thing is like, I just get it all out. I'm a big fan of journaling and it shows up in my work a lot. But yeah, I try not to go in with a plan. I really try and let it just be intuitive. I let the materials guide me. A lot of my work is just playing with color and texture and sort of seeing what I can get away with as far as materials.
That's really cool. I love that you admit that you're a hoarder of materials because I'm sure your studio is a lot similar to my studio where it's like it's even sometimes like different types of pastels, oil pastels, paint, colored pencils, things. It's just like, I'm sure you have an abundance. And it's just like, there's things that I bought and I was like, I have to have this. Have I ever used it? No,
Right.
but I needed it. I absolutely needed it. And I am a hoarder of fabric. I used to work in a fabric store. So I have like a ton of fabric, but now it's just like, and I've carried it around with me for years. And then all of a sudden it's just like, bam, see, I needed it.
Mhm.
Like, I'm using it
Yep.
now. And it's just like, I've had it
Yeah.
for 10 years and I knew I couldn't get rid of it.
hmm Well, and then it holds such history. It's such a personal
Yeah.
history, you know? I love that.
Yeah. And so I'm glad that I'm not the one. Thank you for, being there with me in that journey of like,
I'm happy
see,
to
it's
be affirming.
justifiable.
hmm Oh, yeah. Because you're right. I mean, I've had family members or friends of friends who was going through their house and getting rid of photographs and things. And I was like, oh, please don't throw those out. Like, Aunt Mary could show up in my artwork. Wouldn't you love it? So I'm always using people's photographs. Got to be careful.
I love that. Do you think, okay, so obviously you journal and stuff, and it's just
Yeah.
like, see, this is how I knew that you and I were kindred spirits from the get-go, because it's just like, I journal, but mine turns into poetry for my work before and like short stories.
Yeah. hmm
Um, so do you ever, because I don't know what you journal about and like these stories, but whenever you do get like something like that where it's like photos of someone else, do you try and like mentally tell a story about it, or is
hmm
it just sneaks in there and you just put it in
hmm
there? Like, does that ever play a part?
I kind of, so if you look at my work, there's often many orbs.
Yeah.
And if I'm using multiple photographs, they kind of play with one another. And I like the idea that a date and time could hold so much memory and history, right? Two different photographs could be taken on the same day and hold such power. So I really try and let the pieces kind of tell their own story. But I think human nature is we make up a story, right? Like you go to dinner and you see people holding hands and you're like, first date, you make up a story in your mind. So I definitely do
I
that.
I do
And
it too. Trust me.
yeah, and like when I buy photographs, I actually will buy vintage photos that have no home. So I'm happy to rehome them. Um, but often we know nothing about them. So that's kind of exciting. So they get to relive again in my art.
That's really cool. I love that. And no, you are not the only one. That's one of my favorite things to do. Like, I'll be out to dinner with my husband. I'm like, oh, look at these people. Totally, whatever. Oh, they're fighting. He's like, where are you getting this information? He like looks around. I was like, oh, I can tell.
It's human nature. Yes. We love to tell stories.
So much fun. So, speaking of, so nature, memories, human body are like some of these great sources for you. So, how how do you pull them in to tell a story?
hmm Yeah. I think as far as the forms, they're very natural, biomorphic, like I said before. Um, I've been told they look like pebbles or, um, Cape May is a beach near us. The Cape May diamonds are like a lovely worn in type of rock. So I get that a lot and I definitely see that. I don't know that that's intentional, but I like that people read that into it.
Mm-hmm.
But as for me and my mental health, I get outside every single day. I go to the park every morning with my son and my dog and I ground into the earth. I take my shoes off. I'm that person at the park. Run around barefoot. And it's just so important. And I think it's sort of, I'm not sure what I'm taking away from it, but it's definitely being stored in me colors, smells, sounds, things like that. And
Uh-huh.
then I write all day. And then again, that gets transferred onto my canvas. So it's always there, even if it's not obvious. But I, I think the biggest thing is writing. When I have a memory come up, I have to write it down because I'm afraid I'm going to forget it. And I
Yeah.
think that sort of the collage artist in me is like, let's make it permanent on this canvas so it isn't forgotten, right? So I see a lot of connections. And again, it may not be something that my viewers see, but it's there.
Uh-huh. No, I think that's really beautiful and really, really cool that you do that. It's almost like this beautiful secret hidden message. And
Yeah.
I love that it represents so many different things
hmm
for you. That's really, I'm taking that all in right now, and I can feel it.
Well, and I
Um,
think your work doesn't, it means something to you as the artist, but
oh,
it could mean
always.
something completely different to the viewer. And I am all about that. I don't want to be dogmatic and say this is what my art is about, but
Uh-huh.
I love hearing what people take from it.
Isn't that fun? I think that's one of the coolest things about, being an artist is hearing other people's thought processes. It's just like, if we could truly like read someone's brain, because people obviously filter when, if we ask them, say you're at a show or whatever, and you say, oh, what do you see? What do you like? They filter themselves. So it's just like, it would be really cool if we could actually like hear their thoughts and get their true, honest opinion to know really what is stirring inside them, because it really could be like some deep memory thing or reminder of someone or whatever.
Absolutely. I think you're right, though. No one's going to say, oh, I hate this piece. But how many times have you been in a museum and you're like triggered by something, or you absolutely hate the color scheme they went with, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that means the art's working. If it evokes any sort of emotional response, that's a win in my book. And maybe it's not something you want to hang in your home, but it's making you think and feel.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. So not only are you an artist, but you also do you're interior stylist, and you also say you're a DIY enthusiast.
Oh,
so
yeah.
how does that get incorporated in, does that play a role in your artwork or how you show up in either space?
Yeah, I think it'd be naive to say that they don't, influence one another. They definitely go hand in hand. The interior styling kind of comes and goes depending on, it's usually based off of word of mouth. So someone will contact me who knows someone who did a room with me, which is kind of lovely because I'm not seeking out projects necessarily, but when they come to me, it feels really like soul aligned typically. And I'm a big believer in that. And I've seen it firsthand how important our spaces are to our mental health and to our physical health. And just, if I can play any part in helping someone love their space more, I'm all about it, right? And sometimes it's as simple as decluttering and kind of going through and getting rid of things that no longer serve them. And sometimes it's painting the walls, buying all new furniture. I've done both ends of the spectrum. And then once in a while, my artwork will grace their home, which is like the cherry on top. It's just so wonderful. Color theory is definitely a big thing as an interior stylist or designer. You know what colors make you feel a certain way, what colors you should avoid in this room, or, some rules are meant to be broken, but there's interior design rules. And as far as art, it's kind of the same thing, right? A big red, bold abstract is going to make you feel so energized. And if you're looking for a sleepy space, you want maybe some grays and blues, right? So all of that plays a part in commissions and interior styling. And I feel so blessed that I get to do what I do. I get to create every single day. It just ranges what the creations look like.
That's really cool. And yeah, I've done interior design, and lately, like, for me, I think that the home should instead of everyone just being white and neutral, like everyone's going to be out there and still going to want that. But I really feel like people, like, if you want your house to really give you the type of energy, whether it's calm, energized, or whatever, or make you truly feel at home and at peace, it should truly be an extension of you and your personality and what your tastes are. And sometimes I think
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've had trouble running into this, is trying to not convince people that that's what they need, but it's just like trying to at least guide them to that, whether it's in bringing in certain colors or textures or patterns or a piece of art that doesn't necessarily match the decor, but matches a part of who they are and can bring them, a certain level of peace or a memory or like a part of them that they don't necessarily show the world.
Yeah, a lot of my clients don't know what they like, or they don't know what their style is. So that's kind of fun to explore and figure out together. And I always say, like, when you're investing in a piece of art, it's like living with a roommate, right? You want to enjoy looking at it every day. If it makes you sick, don't invest in it, right? You really have to love it. And it's the same thing with everything. I mean, throw pillows you can change and swap out, and those are easy fixes, and something as simple as that can really uplift the space. But I agree. I want to walk into someone's home and know exactly what they like, what their interests are, what makes them tick, you know? It should be a personal story.
It really should. And I love that one. Actually, I got this piece of advice once. I don't remember where was it? I don't know if I was doing like some like online course or something about interior design and whatnot. But they said, like, if you ever need help finding inspiration for what patterns, colors, or textures that you like, if you don't know where to start in your wardrobe.
Oh, that's a really interesting.
Yeah, look at the clothes in your closet. What colors are there? What type of patterns? Is it large scale? Is it small scale? Is it floral? Is it stripes? Is it like, there's so much there that you already put on your body that makes you feel good. That you already know.
Love that.
Yeah. And I thought, and I was like, that is such a unique way to like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, why would the clothes that I already wear make me feel good? They make me feel confident. Like, otherwise I would never have purchased them. And for me to use that as inspiration to sprinkle throughout my house, I already know that I'm going to be happy and confident when I see things that are in that sense. So I just thought that was just like a really interesting like factoid, because interior design, fashion, and art, they all go hand in hand because it is an extension of who we are.
Yep. You said it perfectly. That everything just feeds off of one another. It's an extension. You could be going out every single day feeling like your badass self. You want to be confident in what you're wearing. And when you have people over, you want to be like, this is my motherfucking space. I love it. I picked all this stuff out. And I want, you know, they may not love it, but it's you. And you want it to be you, right? Fun and
Exactly.
funky. There's a quote. I don't know what movie it's from, but it's, homes are for free expression, not good impression. So
exactly.
take it or leave it.
Yeah, I love that 100%. So so we just talked about art and design. Art and design should be accessible to everyone, because I feel the same way about this. I've been saying this for like 15 years now. So how do you make sure that, you know, work stays affordable while still maintaining, you know, your artist integrity, so that people can afford art and it's not like so priced out that people can't enjoy it? Like, how do you go about approaching that aspect?
It's tricky, and it's something I definitely battle with occasionally. Depends where I'm showing my artwork, but I think a couple of ways that I combat that is selling limited edition prints of paintings. So they're at a cheaper price point, but they still have all that beauty and texture and color. So someone could still bring that into their home. I often will do sort of a sliding pay what you wish scale for certain pieces of art. That gets tricky because a lot of people like to know, just tell me a number. But I want to make sure it is affordable and accessible. So for the right person, that it does feel good. And again, I do commissions a couple times a year, and that's something where I'm happy to have a conversation with my client and make sure, you know, they're getting what they want, but it's within reach. And so, you know, to that point, I work in a lot of different sizes, right? I do 40 by 40s or little itty bitty, you know, 3 by 3s, you know, and I think that's part of it. Switching up the materials, making it accessible, and going to market galleries. Depends on the audience.
Yeah, it's all good. So that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is so that, you know, my goal is to make it so that people know new artists, to know that you don't have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to buy good quality art from an artist and support them, you know? And so making that connection, you know, my goal is to make sure that people don't buy store-bought art anymore. And one of the other things is just like, even, you know, obviously I love to paint big, but there's sometimes when a small painting can make such a huge impact in a room. And some people are like, I need a big, and I need to do all the walls and whatnot. And I was like, but what if you did it? What if you took a 4x4 or an 8x8 or something small, and then have that be a big focal point and let the impact of that piece
Right.
really speak.
And it gives your eyes time to rest, honestly. I absolutely agree. I think there's a hashtag going around right
Yes.
now. It's support living artists. And I think that is so important because, I love IKEA, don't get me wrong. But when you can, why wouldn't you buy an artwork for the same price from someone who's doing it and it keeps the lights on for them?
By doing that, you're adding a special layer of who you are instead of what everyone else has. It makes your home even more unique. And when people come over, and it can be a huge conversation starter. Like if you have people, oh, this is interesting. Where'd you get this? Do you know what, and it opens up this whole new dialogue that that is important, because at the end of the day, like, we all need art and things in our lives as a society in order to survive. And I think that we've gotten away from so much with social media and TV and whatnot, even though I know, like, actors and stories and things, like, it is an art form, because obviously I went to film school. So it's just like, I can't not watch TV and say that's not art, because it is. Right. It's storytelling, which is what we need. But we have gotten so disconnected from physical art, and learning how to talk about it and to have conversations about it and be able to not analyze it, but just to be able to just ask questions. And I think that there's this level of that people are intimidated by it.
Yes, I think that's a huge piece. I think you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes people feel intimidated, like you said, to go into a museum because they don't feel like they fit there. Whereas most museums, their mission is for public art, public consumption, right? They want you to come in and look at it and feel feelings about this art. I completely agree. One of my favorite things to do is just go and absorb, just take it all in, and I invite people to do that more often.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to, I had someone else on, and she had her MFA, and I was like, if you were asking people, like, how to talk about art, and I said, what would you tell them? And she's like, the first thing I would ask them is just describe it. Describe exactly what you see. Don't try and read into the emotions. Don't try to read into anything. Just out loud, not in your head, out loud, describe everything that you see. And then from there, then start asking questions. Well, why did the artist pick that color? Why did they do that? Why is, then that's where the conversations can come, because it's important that we be able to just keep that alive. Is like, you think about, the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, is like, things were handed down generation from generation. And we're now in our generation, there's nothing to hand down. There's nothing that holds enough value, like furniture and whatnot, like to be able to pass down generation from generation. So I think that's where we need to, like, step up and be able to talk more about art so that we can have something to pass down.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's sort of, it's a practice. If you're not using that muscle, it disappears. And that's something I think about raising a young son. Like, I want him to grow up going to galleries and things and seeing art and feeling comfortable in those situations. If you look back in time, like you said, one of the things that was protected during World Wars was art, cathedrals, murals. We need it. It tells a story. It has history.
100%.
It is so important.
Oh my gosh, this has been, I love this, because you and I are very much aligned in a lot of things. And I think that's really special. And I think your work is really special. So, Miss Kayla, where can collectors, potential new collectors, people find you if they wanted to purchase, your work and learn more about you?
I always say, come join me on Instagram. I'm having a hell of a time over there. It's just Kayla Ackelson, one word. And that for people who don't know me, I try to be authentic and real on there, and you can really see what I'm all about. I share my art, my lifestyle, motherhood, mental health, all of that. And then, I invite you to visit my website, which is sort of like the dressed up version of me, KaylaAckelson.com. And yeah, I mean, there's links for everything on both of those, but
Awesome.
come find me on
thank you
social.
so much. And everyone, I will make sure to include her Instagram, website, email, whatever in the show notes so that you can go and join her. I'll make it super easy so you can just click a simple little button in the show notes. So you don't have to go searching for it. So thank you again, Kayla, for coming on. I really appreciate our conversation today. And thank you.
Yeah, I could talk to you all day.
Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And that, my friends, wraps up another colorful episode of The Artist Stoop. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their art and stories. If you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the next Stoop chat. And don't forget to spread the love. Share your favorite episodes with fellow art enthusiasts, and let's build this community together. Connect with us on social media at JGuze Studio and Jillian Zepeda Art for behind-the-scene peeks, artist spotlights, and a sneak peek at my own art. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep that creative fire burning. This is Jillian Zepeda signing off from The Artist Stoop. And remember, the world is your canvas, so paint it vividly.